Okay, so I'm going to get started again. Oh, hello, Hans. Hello and welcome to Sanctioned Disruption. I am glad you're here. I hope you find something in this forest of words that helps you. Certainly the process of writing this for you has helped me to distill and integrate the craziness of power plays going on in the world at the moment. You can give me feedback in the comments when things resonate with you or where you disagree, or you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. Anyway, let's get started. In January 2026, we have experienced two leaders remaking the world order. Mark Carney visiting China, Donald Trump threatening 100% tariffs on Canada, both men disrupting the status quo. Both are wielding power to force change, but how they do it explains why one creates transformation whilst the other one is creating chaos. After a visit to Beijing, Carney went on to Davos to expose his thinking to the most influential people in the world. The Illuminati of international finance, or at least the very architects of global capital. Anyway, as a former governor of the Bank of England, Carney offered credibility to his audience. Rather than start with financial technicalities, he recounted a story about quiet change. And this story was told previously by Václav Havel, who was the first democratically elected president of the Czech Republic after the country withdrew from the communist system. Havel's story is about a grocer in communist Czechoslovakia. Every day, the grocer displays a sign in the window of his shop saying, "Workers of the world unite." And year after year, the sign stays there, even though the grocer doesn't believe it anymore. The grocer has seen people steal, participate in fake elections, and persecution is rife. So fear has compelled him to keep it there until one day he takes the sign down. The cost of maintaining the lie for the grocer became higher than the cost of removing it. And that's Canada's position, Carney explained. The American-led order is over. Why pretend it still works when it doesn't? Middle powers must face this reality. And the US doesn't cooperate, it's coercing. And notice what Carney did. He gave his audience a clear why, a reason for the change ahead and his behavior, a logic that they could examine. So Carney had invited the Illuminati, not the Illuminati, the financiers, to see what he sees. In China, Carney and his team removed trade restrictions that Canada had implemented on cars, previously in coordination with the last US administration to protect the US car industry primarily. And he came back and stated publicly, Canada won't pursue free trade with China. But underneath, when looking at the Davos speech, Canada's shift had actually already begun. And this power creates new possibilities by inviting other countries to stop automatically supporting the US and instead stick to established rules. And when Canada removed the tariffs on cars, tariffs they'd maintained to help their bigger American brother, they were signaling that this kind of automatic support is no longer to be assumed. And Carney needs people to understand his reasoning, to see the world as he sees it, to recognize that they have choices. Carney is saying, don't do the US any favors and don't rely on them. Trump hears about the China trip, and his reaction is immediate. A 100% tariff threat, no explanation of American interest, no articulation of strategy, just punishment for defiance. Trump screwed up with his aggression, and it combines with the inability to recognize the mistake. Because that's how Trump experiences Carney's move, not as Canada pursuing its own interests, but rather a personal defiance. And doing the US a favor has become expected, and withdrawing it is not seen rationally consequential by Trump, but instead expected favoritism combines with US exceptionalism. And the resulting reaction from Trump is emotional and indignant. Understanding Carney's actual position would require Trump imagining he doesn't control everything. That other leaders have also been doing the US a favor is anathema. It is acted out by Trump as a one-way street where everyone is taking the US for granted instead. In this moment, Trump converts his frustration into omnipotence. He doesn't think rationally, well, if I do X, Carney will do Y because of Z. Trump acts out. How dare they? They must submit. No prediction, no strategy, just assertion of dominance. And when dominance doesn't work, Trump doesn't learn. To disguise his failure, what does he do? He floods the zone with new threats and new enemies. Always forward, dominance over results, appearing strong, regardless of the consequences that actually people are starting to recognize as weakness. So whilst Trump threatens, the world adjusts. Canada builds trade frameworks with the EU and China. Mexico diversifies its partnerships, and Asian allies are hedging their bets quietly and methodically. Reality is rooting around America like water flowing around a stone. And this is the cost. America is getting less influence, less support when a crisis hits, and less trade, less favors. But here's what makes this complicated. MAGA supporters chose Trump. They voted for him. They celebrate his approach. So hasn't Trump's disruption been sanctioned? Yes, Trump has support, but notice how that support functions. It requires complete acceptance to Trump's version of reality. No questions, no adjustments based on what's actually happening. Just loyalty. The moment you notice these consequences, the moment you connect your lost job to the policies that caused it, you're outside the circle because you don't appreciate what Trump's doing for you. The problem isn't the policy. The problem is your disloyalty in noticing this system you voted for. It's doing you a favor. You get to say and think whatever you like. How dare you question how Trump has helped you now you don't have a job or enough money? How dare you? MAGA support is based on doing a favor. MAGA fans get the space to speak their mind. That's the favor. And when the promised outcomes don't emerge, the favor sticks in a way that it does not when you're another country, like Canada has illustrated by removing tariffs on cars. So this is sanction that contracts this version of Trump's power plays. And it contracts as expected outcomes do not emerge. Cheaper eggs, yes, a little bit. More affordable living in general, no. Carney's approach is expansive in contrast. He invites scrutiny. His logic can be examined by people who disagree. They can be cooperated with, where interests align whilst maintaining their own priorities elsewhere. No favors are expected, just clear logic and respect for each other. And when you build on a clear why that others can understand and follow, you create conditions for adaptation, for learning, for course correction. And when you build on omnipotence and favors, you create brittleness. Because omnipotence cannot adjust, it cannot learn, and it cannot admit error. And favors only bind when both sides acknowledge the exchange that's happening. When America refuses to see what others offer, their loyalty, their trade, their restraint, whilst expecting those countries to bend the knee, then American soft power evaporates. And that's why Canada stops playing along and starts building alternatives. It's a kind of favor bank which is collapsing the moment one side stops keeping a reasonable score. When reality keeps contradicting the MAGA ideology, you have two choices: adjust or suppress. In Russia and North Korea, everyone knows the regime is lying. They keep the signs in their windows anyway. Taking them down is more dangerous than maintaining the lie. Suppression works. America isn't there yet. The feedback loop between actions and consequences still works. But what if it stops? What if MAGA keeps buying Trump's favors harder and regardless of what happens? Well, then you need suppression to maintain the ideology. That's how it works. The circle of people who can speak truth is getting smaller and smaller. The tolerance that allowed MAGA to vote for this intolerance is going to go away because intolerant ideology, when it gains full power, cannot tolerate the dissent that created the space for it in the first place. And can enough Americans still see cause and effect? Can they connect their pain to the policies and politicians causing it and the rich, rather than the favor of blaming the scapegoats that they're being offered? Will they take the Make America Great Again sign down from their windows? Are the favors that this sign lends to MAGA fans enough? Sanctioned disruption requires a clear why that others can examine. It requires courage to lead, but also humility to invite scrutiny. Favors are reciprocal. Sanctioned disruption creates conditions where people can choose to follow because they understand the logic, not because they fear punishment when they choose differently. On one side, I believe Carney's disruption will outlast Trump's threats because it creates space for others to act in their own interests, to ignore the favors given to America if they choose to, whilst moving in a new direction, hopefully together. Trump's approach contracts that space until there's room for only one voice, one vision, and one version of reality. One builds foundations that adapt and strengthen, building trust, and leads others operating autonomously under the same foundational ideas. But Trump's version builds fragility disguised as strength through the application of aggression to force favor. To tell the difference, imagine what you would do under Carney and Trump's leadership in a business when they're not watching. Carney's vision creates a why, mobilizing your energy to work on what he wants you to do, even when he's not there. It's expansive, and you can use your creativity to pursue it. Trump's approach generates compliance with the favor of speaking your mind, blaming foreigners and ungrateful others. But what are MAGA fans actually creating? They empower constraints, reductive values applicable to specific parts of society. That's not creative. It's the destructive expulsion of parts of society intolerable to MAGA. There's no intrinsic motivation in Trump's approach because blame and anger are not creative acts. They are like sugar, empty calories giving short-term energy in MAGA's drive to restrict society. Carney's message offers a creative reason to think differently and find your own path. And this is what sanctioned disruption is about. If you want to understand how to disrupt in ways that create lasting change others buy into and can support, subscribe to the channel. I'm excited to explore sanctioned disruption with you. I hope you can feel my passion for the subject in this video. Take care. Bye-bye.